своем веку. Красавице и куку, счастливому клинку. Пока, пока, покачивая перьями на шляпах, судьбе не расшибнем, merci beaucoup.
Anyway, no, I am still young enough to, and we read together, and I don't remember who said, we are the Three Musketeers. It's me because I am a devotee of Dumas, but somebody else, not me, I think is Carol Evelyn, then knew that Dumas wrote after the Three Musketeers 20 years later, and making a little change in timing, decided to celebrate the return of the Three Musketeers. But you know that there is the third episode, the Vicomte de Bragelonne, in which all the Three Musketeers die. So we have planning the new event, I think, in the long run.
Yeah. Well, the big question, of course, is who is D'Artagnan?
D'Artagnan is the fourth. He's the fourth.
That's him. That's him. Well, we know that Mario is Aramis.
Aramis, because it's very... We are competing each other for being Porthos, because of Porthos...
I have to say, I should say it was one of the great pleasures of this year's festival that when we had the idea of trying to put this act back together, that I emailed both Umberto and Mario and said, would you like to do it again? And the speed with which they replied to accept, was extremely enjoyable, because it's clear that they wanted to, for some mysterious reason, wanted to do it again. But it's but remember that at the time that we did it before was the time when the most famous three around were the three tenors. So you don't want to hear us sing. But I think that was also behind it, that we needed, I remember saying, why not the Three Stooges, but I guess Musketeers is a little more literary.
It's more literary, but also, I was thinking, is this a head and higher than the score?
Yes, well these are, yes, exactly. Yes, that's so clever.
Anyway, you know that the Three Musketeers is one of the most beautiful example of literary jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Dumas was able to write very badly. The Count of Monte Cristo is horribly written. The Three Musketeers is pure jazz, with such a rhythm, such a sense of a riff. It's incredible. He's able to continue for 3 pages with a dialogue, saying nothing, but he's like a ardatum, a drum. A drum, isn't?
Yes.
There are many dialogues because he was paid by words.
He was paid by the word, it's true.
He was paid by words, so...
Yes, that's why
there are so many dialogues.
But even jazzmen are paid according to how much they play during the night in the brothel, isn't it? So,
no, I always felt that J.K. Rowling learned a lot from Alexandre Dumas. Because there are so many pages in Harry Potter which go, what shall we do? I don't know what to do. Ron. What do you think we should do? I don't know. Let's ask Hermione. What should we do? Beats me, Harry. Are you sure you don't know what to do? Pages and pages of this stuff. It's completely Alexandre Dumas.
Maybe can I say something? Since we are getting crazy and speaking of everything, I worked a lot on the style of Dumas. And once I accepted by a publisher the idea of translating the entire Count of Monte Cristo by reducing it of the 25%. Because the Count of Monte Cristo say he get off of the seat where he was sitting before, which is absolutely absolutely tautological. No, so you can say he went up. Okay. So I went on. I came on for 100 pages by reducing it for of the 25%. It was stylistically very beautiful, but I understood that I had lost the magic of the book. The magic of the book is due to the fact that it is badly written. It's a sort of a lutulent, I don't know if in English it exists that beautiful adjective, but muddy, mud-like flow of mud, and creating a myth. Yeah. And then I discovered that on one side there is literature creating Madame Bovary, and on the other side there is mythography. It is not necessary to write well to create a myth. Not necessary to write well to create Little Red Riding Hood, but it exists as a myth. And the Count of Monte Cristo exists as a myth, even though it has not been written by, is badly written. So that the Gospels created
no, it's an interesting thing that
truth being written modestly.
The figures of the great figures who emerged from bad writing. You know, a great example of that in American literature is Hawkeye.
Who?
Hawkeye, the last of the Mohicans.
No.
It is impossible to read a sentence of James Fenimore Cooper, you know, without falling asleep or developing a headache. You know, and yet all of these poor people had to read him at school. You know, and what happens is that it's an example like Sherlock Holmes of the character who breaks free of the prose in which he's written, you know, and becomes something immortal in spite of the author.
Italians and also Spaniards know Emilio Salgari, who created Sandokan and Corsagone. He was writing in a horrible way. It's impossible to read it.
Oh, I don't agree. I disagree. I disagree.
Oh, good.
No. Well, what do you call bad writing? If you read a novel and you are deeply moved, as you are when you read El Conde de Monte Cristo. I cried when I read El Conde de Monte Cristo. And you are excited and you are transported to another world of adventures, of extremes, extreme feelings, extreme deeds. These cannot be badly written, you know. Well, maybe in grammatical terms, but if you are moved and you are transported, this is great literature. Yes. And I think Alexander Dumas was a great writer, you know.
Mr. Mario, I don't disagree. By saying what I said, I am casting in doubt the notion of literature.
Yeah.
Okay.
But good writing is not grammatically correct writing, you know. Very great writers had a very bad grammar, you know, but in spite of that, they were able to produce fantastic novels. And I think Dumas is one of them. Dumas was a fantastic creator of characters, of mythology. He created an alternative reality. Well, very unrealistic, if you wish, but very moving, very moving, and something that had a touch with something that we love, human beings, extremes, adventures.
In English, there's a very good category for this, the category of the good bad book.
Good bad book, that's all right. That's all right. I can. What is bad writing? I think bad writing is the writing of a novel in which you don't believe a word of what you are told, you know. Yes. It may be perfectly correctly written, but if you are not touched and moved and transported, this is badly written. It's bad writing, you know.
Okay.
You read your new book that's coming out later this month. Many of us read a portion of it in the New Yorker.
Yeah.
And it's about It's really about what happens when East meets West as much as anything else.
400 years ago, yeah.
Now, that has been a theme in your work over the years. And in Umberto, you created a program at the University of all these years. It's called Anthropology of the West from the perspective of non-Westerners as defined by their own criteria. So you thought also about this East-West or cultures clashing with cultures throughout your career as well. I'm wondering in both cases, what that does for a writer in terms of thinking about another culture other than your own.
Well, I think I was frequently concerned with that, not only my scholarly activity, okay, that's mandatory. In my novel, for instance, in Baudolino, there is a problem of East and West, and the contacts between the two civilizations, and so on and so forth. But I think every thinking person is always considering this connection between culture. They are only the fundamentalists that don't have this gift. It seems to me so elementary.
Yeah, no, it is. One of the things that's interesting about when you study the Renaissance in Europe is the idea that these cultures are separate is absurd.
The Renaissance was the discovery through Byzantium of
and even and also even if you look at the great art of Venice in terms of glassware and weaving and so on, they're using motifs from the Lebanon and from Ottoman Turkey. The Ottomans are actually ordering their carpets from Venice because the Venetians made better carpets, but they're sending their patterns. So these cultures are deeply intertwined. And for me, it's something that came from the moment of my birth, because the city I grew up in, Bombay, is not an ancient Indian city. It's not like Delhi. It's not like Calcutta. This city did not exist until the British came to India. So this is a British city built on Indian soil. And if you grow up, there was nothing there. There were fishing villages. So you grow up in such a city, and that sense of the interpenetration of culture is there from your first days. So it's you don't have to even travel to discover it.
So the Western culture started, didn't start, but with Alexander and his trip to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Incredible to that very developed civilization.
I think it's right that the history of Peru is largely about the clash of different cultures, the Western, the Spanish culture, the ancient pre-Columbian cultures.
Well, I think Peru is like a microcosmos. It's the pre-Hispanic cultures, which are still there. The Western culture, which arrived, of course, with the Spaniards. It's also Africa, which arrived at the same time that the Europeans. And Africa is very present in our culture, in our music, and we have received other cultures too, from Asia, for example, Japanese, Chinese. So if you try to define Peru, you cannot exclude any of these cultures, branches, traditions, which I think is a great richness for a country, to be like a little microcosmos in which many different cultures are present, coexisting with difficulties, but linking the country to the rest of the world. This, I think, is valid not only for Peru, but for most Latin American countries.
I was going to say the Japanese hasn't come. Your life had been different. You might have been president.
Yeah, well, so the Japanese, let me tell you an anecdote. The first time I went to Japan, that was in the 70s, and to my big surprise, everybody knew that Peru had been the second country in the world that opened its doors to the Japanese immigrants. The first was Brazil, and then Peru. And Peru was known in Japan because of that. Not because the Incas, because Machu Picchu. No. It was because it was the second country in the world that permitted the Japanese immigration. Yeah. They did wonderful things in Peru, by the way. Not Fujimori, but the Japanese did wonderful things.
But such a great thing that Mario is not president of Peru.
Otherwise,
he wouldn't be here, and he wouldn't be writing books, and etc. You know, I mean, which Mario Vargas Llosa would we like? President Mario?
You know, Salman, that's what I say. Yeah. Peruvians voted against me because they loved so much my novels. You know,
and instead of a Musketeer, it would have become a Richelieu.
Sorry?
Writers in other countries serve a different culture than they do in the United States. In this country, in other countries, they often get involved in politics, and we've seen a fair number of writers move in politics for academics of another sort. Your friend who just lost the leadership of Italy was an economist and also an intellectual.
A colleague of my university, yes.
Yes, royalty. But in this country, I think writers are meant to be more entertainers than anything else.
But you know, isn't that recent though? I mean, I remember as a young man admiring the way in which American writers like Mailer and others, you know, would. Well, that may not have been his smartest move, you know. But he was certainly a writer who rolled up his sleeves and took arms against the culture. He was a person who waded in and fought. He was a public figure, and it seemed possible for writers as recently as that to be public figures in America who could be of consequence in the culture. And I think it's a loss for America that seems not to be the case now.
No, I have an explanation for that. Because a very serious explanation, because I am frequently asked why you are a university professor, in the same time you are a columnist, you are involved in political comments, and they say, but the same happens in France, and the same happens when I was 3 days ago dining with good class, he took part in the political affairs of this country. It's a geographical problem. The situation of America is the same as the English situation, in which the universities are not situated in the city. Oxford and Cambridge are outside London. The American universities are in the campus. The campus is something living its own life independently of the polis. Why? In France, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, the university is usually in the center of the city, and therefore it's obliged to take part in the political life. So it happens that in America it's not true that a scholar is not involved in politics, but the moment he starts, he resigns from the university, he makes another job. So that the most strange figure is the one of Chomsky, who is doing both, which is unacceptable for the American mind. While in Germany or in France, Chomsky, is somebody who is doing both grammar and politics. That you can agree with him as far as politics is concerned, and not on grammar. No, but that's it.
And so I must say,
in the East, you were arrested and imprisoned for voicing your opinions, while in the West, you could make as many revolutionary statements as you pleased, and no one would give a damn. There were no penalties, and therefore, seriousness, your freedom, therefore, was something to do.
But in one of the books of Italo Calvino, I think If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, he says something, I paraphrase, to the effect that you can tell how highly a country esteems literature by the size of the apparatus it sets up to repress it. And by that criterion, the Soviet Union really thought literature was very important, and well, America not at all.
I think, I think that for writers to be considered important as public figures, you need dictatorships. In a democratic society, writers are considered entertainers.
I'm not sure. I got to disagree with you. Mark.
Well, but finish.
Finish. Then I'll disagree.
Let me finish. That is why writers that are committed to civic and political causes in open societies don't have a response, a reaction. It's because if institutions are more or less functioning, and if there are main vehicles to express criticism, and literature is, even if we don't like it, entertainment. But it's very, very different when democracy disappears and an authoritarian or totalitarian system is imposed on a society. Then literature becomes a vehicle to express what cannot be expressed in the press or in the media because censorship. And so literature, without renouncing its, let's say, literary, artistic, aesthetic function, becomes an instrument for expressing criticism, protest, and to communicate what is not possible to communicate by other ways. That is the reason why writers are so committed politically in third world countries and in countries which are suffering dictatorships.
No, I think that's true, and I mean one of the demonstrations of this is the sharp decline in Russian literature, since the end of the Soviet Union. Yeah. And it's a bitter irony, but it's so. Yeah. However, what I was trying to say is that I guess if you look at a country like England or France, at a time of high political interest, like let's say like an election campaign, like a war, they will ask the leading writers of the day to comment on that. That they will ask in England Ian McEwan or Julian Barnes or Martin Amis or whoever it might be to write. And the rest is,
anyway, it has a political impact.
But what I'm saying is that here, in this country, here we are in the middle of a very extraordinary election campaign, and at a time when the country is very concerned about that. But even those American writers who have profound political sophistication, the kind of DeLillo, Robert Stone, whoever it might be, you don't find them on the op-ed pages. You don't find newspapers going to them to ask what their opinion is of what's going on. And what's happened in this country is I think a regrettable thing, which is a professionalization of the commentariat, so that you can. But unless you're a professional commenter, you're not allowed to comment. And I think it's a narrowing of the voices that can be heard in this country, and it's different from Europe. It's different, I think, from Latin America.
I think it would be important also to say something around this subject. I am in favor, of course, of the participation of writers in the public debate. Some kind of civic commitment, I think, is good for society, but also very good for literature. Otherwise, literature can take such a distance of real problems and become a very frivolous and kind of exercise. But not always the participation of writers in civic and political matters has been good for society, because there is a very long tradition, unfortunately, of writers who have chosen the worst options. It's very sad to discover that great creators, great poets, great novelists supported dictators, were great promoters of horrendous ideologies. It's very sad to think that probably the most brilliant philosopher of modern times was a Nazi, and he never rejected.
Never repented.
He never repented. Heidegger never repented. Ezra Pound was a fascist, and he never repented. And all the writers who were Stalinists. It's very sad when one thinks that Sartre, one of the most intelligent intellectuals of his time, was a Maoist when the Cultural Revolution in China, when millions and millions of Chinese were sacrificed in the concentration camp and in the craziness of the culture. And Mao and Sartre was a Maoist. And how many French intellectuals during those years were Maoists? You remember? Telquel, very sophisticated, and they were Maoists. They were supporting the China of the Cultural Revolution. So in certain societies, probably, these examples have created some kind of suspicions of the political commitment of writers.
How did you react when they burned thousands of your personal books?
Well, first I was very depressed. Then I was very grateful to the military, because although they burned my books, they didn't forbid the novel, so the novel became a bestseller, because of that.
No, I'm just going to ask you. I was just going to ask Umberto if he had any books burned, because otherwise he's slightly out of this conversation.
No, I only told story of burned books. Which no, but I want to try a mediation between the two positions. I think that Mario is obviously right when he says that writers become important under the dictatorship, because they remain the only hope.
Yeah.
The only hope for a society in which everybody keeps silent. Okay, that's true. But at the same time, we have seen that in democracy, in democratic states, the importance of writers has been important. Think in Italy of Moravia, of Pasolini, of Sciascia, of Primo Levi. They were not only moral but political authorities. And in France, from Marot to Sartre, independently if they were right or wrong, they were political authorities. And in Germany it was the same, from Junger to Günter Grass. And even in Great Britain, think of Bertrand Russell, the only inexplicable phenomenon is, as you said, America, in which they don't have a political impact, being at the same time most of them the most important writers in the world, published everywhere, followed in every country, but they don't have power in their own country. I'm unable to explain in sociological terms this phenomenon, but
it's because of the existence of movie stars.
Oh, what? That's probable.
In this country,
because Malraux became minister, and here is Schwarzenegger that becomes minister.
No, it's here. You're speaking to me as a movie star, right? Yeah. Yes. I'm glad you're talking about my most important work. Yeah. Yep. No, let it.
And Paul also told me that he wanted to have you in a film, but he couldn't get insurance.
Once upon a time. It was bad old days.
And you just told me you were in a music video with Scarlett Johansson. I mean,
Listen, Lenny, if somebody said to you, would you stand against that wall and kiss Scarlett Johansson on the back of her neck, what would you say?
I'm already taken.
I just said yes. It's just somebody has to do it. It's true. It's true.
Are they coming to you? Or you
Yeah, no, they just seek me out. Yeah. Well, that's what happened. You know, I mean, with the Helen Hunt movie, I mean, what do I know? I didn't know Helen Hunt. She wasn't a friend. I mean, her agent called my agent and said they'd be interested, would I be interested in this part? And they sent me the script. I read the script. I thought it was a good script. I went and auditioned and nailed it. To my great pleasure, afterwards, I met friends of mine who are actors of Indian origin who live in New York, and they said, we went up for that movie. And I said, I'm sorry, but, you know, I beat you out.
What's the reaction in Italy to the book that you wrote where you went after those and everything that he represents?
I didn't say anything new. What I said was said by a lot of other people. You know, Italy was divided into two halves. One half thought exactly what I said in this book, and so I could have avoided to write it. It would have been the same. And the other half think. Oh, the only thing is that the title was prophetic. In English, the title is Turning the Clock Back. That happened in Italy. We turned the clock 65 years back. And this time, you cannot even expect that the Americans come to liberate us, because Bush is a close friend of Berlusconi.
No, and the mayor of Rome is a member of the fascist party.
He was. Yeah.
The mayor of Rome is
Yes.
a member of the fascist party.
65 years back. So at least I have the satisfaction of being a prophet, which is a biblical feature.
It's overrated, actually.
This is addressed. It says all three. Describe your writing method. How do you
Describe?
Your writing method.
This is the nuts and bolts stuff, but how do you?
Next question.
No, I have a writing method.
Yeah.
I write from left to right. Why my Israeli colleague writes right.
Mr. Eco, could you elaborate on the process that led you to create the character thought story and how you chose the language that made all languages enough?
Is a very difficult and Pentecostal question.
In language, in universal languages,
Well, that's my job. No. Apart that I am a professor of semiotics and therefore of the theory of language and science, I wrote a book on the search for the perfect language, which was a very important topic during the century. And my Salvatore in The Name of the Rose speaks a sort of patchwork of different languages. So it was a literary amusement. But probably we don't know what happened with the apostles in the Pentecost. what is the gift of language? Did they speak their own language and everybody learned, understood in their own language? Or they were practicing glossolalia, which is the production of an existing language, but that in mystical situation everybody believes. Or they did. So, according to me, Pentecost was something similar to the language of Salvatore. But there is a serious element in that. I share an opinion with a colleague of mine, Acest, in France. We cannot work for a common language in the world. It will never exist. Well, okay, there is English in this moment, but English will be step by step destroyed by the fact that everybody speaks English in a different way. And in Europe we have in this moment 27 simultaneous translation, even in languages spoken by very small amount of people. The only hope is to reach a situation of extended polylanguage. I mean, it happens with intellectuals sitting at the same table. Well, this evening he spoke in Spanish, I answered him in Italian, another one makes an intervention.
I didn't understand the word.
Well, step by step, even English-speaking subject can wait. So to reach a situation in which people can interact, each with his own language. There is a man working as a translator in the European Commission who invented the Europanto. Europanto is a curious language in which there is one word in English, one another, but you understand. You understand it perfectly, and if you miss a word, you recuperate it, you recover it. And my Salvatore spoke practically a sort of savage Europanto. Well, let me say, 20 years before Europanto was invented. But I think we can reach a situation of sort of extended polylanguage situation, because no political power in the world was ever able to impose a language, not even the Roman Empire. People continue to speak Greek in the Mediterranean area and to produce new languages from the Gauls apple. So no political power can impose a language. Is the
South America speaking.
Yes, it was due to a massive migration. But you know that certain things that in Peru can be told and understood and accepted even by a lady, in Venezuela are profanities. So also the South American Spanish is not a monolithic language.
Fortunately.
English, we believe it's a monolithic language, but it's you that yesterday told me about quite.
Yeah, quite. No,
That's the
was
story of quite. That's incredible, but it's
yeah.
All these different English speakers are ruining the language. I think you said once that English was being enriched by all of the people who have been forced to speak English as a second language, people from the Indian communities, from Africa, and from elsewhere.
I think it's true that I think English has the gift of immense flexibility. You know, it's a very bendy language. You could make it into almost anything you want. French is more classical, more syntactically rigid than English. So English has lent itself to local variation very well. And India is one place where English has acquired a whole lexicon of its own. If the person who runs an organization in India is known as the in charge. So you know, if a Martian were to land in India, he would say, "Take me to your in charge." You know, and an event in which the police shoot people to death is known as a police encounter. You know, he was, and of course, people don't die; they are slain. People are slain in a police encounter. When somebody commits a robbery and runs away, this is described in the national press as the vagabond absconding with the booty. So on, you know. So it's very enriching. Oh, sexual harassment is Eve teasing. Eve teasing, and so on. So it's become a quite substantially different, and so has Caribbean English, so has Australian English, so has African English, and these variations are, I think, you know, incredibly enriching.
Now, for language, flexibility can be a virtue and a risk. The virtue that you can speak it in every way you want. You see, my English is okay, right? More or less you understand. Okay. But at the same time, flexibility means that every local version transforms itself step by step. What happened to Latin? It was spreading around the whole empire, and it became the modern languages. It transformed itself into Spanish, Italian, German, the mixture, Romanian, and so on. So, and it was due to the fact that the late empire Latin was very flexible, not so rigid like the one of Virgil of Horace. It became very, very flexible, and so practically it dissolved into a variety of dialects.
Now, you know, Winston Churchill famously said that England and America were divided by a common language. And I had to learn this, you know, you have to learn to speak American. What the thing we were talking about, the story of quite, you know, is that in America, quite is an intensifier, and in England it's a modifier. So here, if you say something is quite good, you mean it's extremely good. In England, if you say something is quite good, you mean it's kind of, it's all right. It's not serious. It's all right. It's not very. It's not good. It's not bad. It's okay. And so I would come here as a young man, and people would say to me, "Oh, I read your book. It's quite good." And I would say, "Oh, you didn't like it very much." And then they would look at me as if I was mad. You know. And this is.
And I told people that when I was a kid, I wore knickers as suspenders, which.
Oh yeah. That's right. That's right. Whereas braces presumably in America are things you wear in your teeth. Not on your pants.
Yes, once in London I wanted to buy suspended. I wasn't understood.
No.
But you, I don't know whether you're the reason we had your reading in Spanish and Vargas in Italian. I thought it was a great idea because this really is about our own voices. But we did a reading in Queens, and you insisted on reading in Spanish there as well. Is it, even though you're so fluent in English, you still would prefer to read in Spanish?
Well, I prefer to read in Spanish because in Spanish I can use all the necessary nuances. This is not the case when I read in English. No? I can read in English, but I know that I sacrifice a lot of what I have written in the original.
Well, this was actually, I remember in Three Musketeers 1. You know, this is Three Musketeers 2. This time it's serious.
But you have forgotten. No. There was Three Musketeers 2 in France. You have forgotten.
No, that was on the pivot thing.
Well, but that was also, Three Musketeers performance.
Yes, that was, but that was only on television, which doesn't count.
But it was pivot, which was
the point I'm making
very
is that when we
respectable
did it,
literary TV
yes,
program.
no, of course it is. Yes,
Very respectable.
yes. I just say that when we did it in London, both Umberto and Mario were obliged to read in English, and did so. And I felt very. I kind of wanted this to happen because I felt the festival is called World Voices. You know, you want to hear the world's voices. You want to hear Mario Vargas Llosa read the words he actually wrote. You know, and Umberto Eco read the words he wrote. You know? Exactly. And I think it's a great. I had the idea because I was invited to do a reading in Rome, in this perhaps now defunct series that was created by the previous mayor. An extraordinary thing to be asked to read in the Roman Forum. You know, a thing you're not very often asked to do is to play ancient Rome.
Only Nero. Only Nero.
Exactly. And I mean, it was an amazing thing. It was a free reading series. They put up a stage and a giant screen, and half the screen was the writer's face, and the other half of the screen was a roller title of the text they were reading. And literally thousands of people would come. I mean, thousands of people, because it was a free event. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people would come and sit. And you got to speak what you had to say in your own language in the ruins of Rome. It was just the most extraordinary reading that anybody could be asked to do. And I thought there's something important here, that your own voice should be heard, the music of your own voice. And everybody can understand what you're saying because there's the meaning of it, you know. And so it's great that the technology now exists that we can do this, that we can allow writers from any language to speak in their own language and for them to be understood.
It is wonderful reading that. Thank you so much for reading, Mario Garcia, for